I've always been fascinated by the resilience of human beings in the face of unimaginable tragedy. On August 6, 1945, the world witnessed an event that would forever change the course of history. The atomic bombing of Hiroshima wasn't just an act of war, it was a demonstration of humanity's capacity for both destruction and survival. The moment the bomb detonated, Hiroshima was transformed into a hellscape. The blast instantly flattened the city, wiping out buildings, infrastructure, and lives in a matter of seconds. An estimated 80,000 people were killed on impact. That's about 30% of the city's population gone in an instant. But the horror didn't end there. In the hours and days that followed, survivors, known as hibakusha, faced unimaginable suffering. They experienced severe burns, acute radiation sickness, and injuries from collapsing structures. Hospitals were destroyed, medical supplies were scarce, and many of the city's doctors and nurses were among the dead or injured. The survivors were left to, fend for themselves in a landscape that was barely recognizable as their home. By the end of 1945, just a few months after the bombing, the death toll had climbed to about 140,000. This staggering increase wasn't just from untreated injuries. Many succumbed to radiation-related illnesses, their bodies ravaged by an invisible enemy they couldn't understand or fight. The bombing didn't just destroy buildings and people, it ravaged the environment. The blast created a firestorm that consumed what little was left standing. Water sources were poisoned and the land was left barren. But one of the most insidious environmental impacts came in the form of black rain. This wasn't ordinary rainfall. It was a toxic mixture of radioactive fallout and water vapor that spread contamination far beyond the bomb's initial reach. The survivors' struggles were far from over. They lived in fear of long-term health effects, particularly genetic mutations that could be passed on to their children. While studies have found mixed evidence on inherited effects, the psychological impact of this fear was profound. For decades, survivors were closely monitored, becoming subjects in the longest-running study of radiation exposure in human history. Hiroshima's story didn't end in 1945. Despite the unimaginable devastation, the city began to rebuild in the late 1940s. The preserved Genbaku Dome, now known as the Hiroshima Peace Memorial, stands as a stark reminder of the past and a symbol of hope for the future. Hiroshima has transformed into a city that advocates for peace and nuclear non-proliferation, its journey from ruin to resilience serving as a powerful example of the human spirit.